composure. The pregame speech was about, what do you want the headline to be tomorrow, regardless of stat line, right? Like your ability to stay together, your ability to respond. There's going to be momentum swings. There's going to be loud moments. There's going to be quiet moments. What we can control in those situations, and I felt like they did a great job. That was one of the most composed teams in Dahlberg that I've coached, and we've had a lot of good teams over the years, and I felt like we responded every time, and we could not stop the three ball today, but we were able to find ways of getting in the situation that we were.
Montana made so many big threes, especially in the second quarter, but you guys really shut them down in the third quarter. What'd you change defensively?
Well, really, we were trying to control the penetration, because the penetration was, opening up the driving kicks, and so we went to switching a few more actions to keep us in the position to not allow them to turn corners, and I felt like our kids executed that really well. But third quarters for us is really important as well with our depth of our team, and I thought our bench today was fantastic. They talked about Grace Beasley, but our bench really came through for us today as well, and that's where you put those 4 quarters combined. Every single possession matters, especially in a situation and environment like this, and containing that penetration kind of allowed us to stay a little bit closer on some of those shooters.
And in terms of penetration, Darian got in the lane pretty much at will. So, how much does that key what you guys do offensively?
Yeah, when Darian gets going, obviously that's something we can just put the ball in her hands in those situations. Credit the Grizz, they had some traps that disrupted us a little bit, and we had to find some other options. And but when that jumper, she gets into her groove with that, it's a really important piece for us. But then we feel like we've got kind of a second weapon with Grace coming in. And Grace really was super aggressive today for us. She's really played big in some of those bigger games. I go back to even LSU and Hawaii, and she came in. She's really fearless, and I think the team played off of that as well for her. But yeah, when Darian can get into that paint, we try to open up some floor spacing for that.
Tricia, particularly a game like this where the nerves were pretty obvious for both teams in the first few minutes, how important was it to have veterans like Grace and Darian who've been there before and kind of keep your composure as you went into the second half?
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of lessons learned last year. The Grizz really got us here last year. The year prior was COVID, and so it's a very different experience in Dahlberg when there's fans compared to not having fans. And I thought we were just a little bit more prepared with, it was going to be a lot louder. What is communication going to look like? We really try to simplify our call list in the first half because they weren't going to be able to hear us, and let the players, let Darian and Grace call those things and give them the ownership with that. But overall, that was a lot of growth for us.
Lexi Dean didn't shoot all that well, but I thought she was big for you at the start of the game, getting everybody settled down, and then the block after they got the steal right at the end. Just what about her coming back to her hometown and playing that way?
Yeah, Lexi's game goes beyond her stat line for sure. One of the things that we love about her is she's a competitor, and I loved her comment. She got interviewed this week, and she's like, I love Missoula, I love Bozeman, but I'm a Cat, and she's going to take a lot of pride in that, representing our program, and it's one of her greatest gifts is that she's a competitor. When she steps on the floor, she's going to find ways to impact regardless of whether the shot's going in or not. Her hustle plays, her offensive rebounding, the aggressiveness, the disruptiveness, she brings a lot to the table, and we needed that. It's an environment that you can't come in timid. You've got to come in attack-minded, and you've got to respond to what they do.
What was the defensive game plan on Carmen G-Feller, and how much did Cola kind of spearhead that effort?
Yeah, she really got going last year here, and part of this was we gave up 10 threes to Idaho on Monday as well, by the way, so that statistic is consistent, so I'm hoping we can grow there. But we know that Carmen is very good around the basket, and she's very, very good at isolations, and she can really shoot the ball, so that's pretty much everywhere, right? When you have players like that and you give them one free look, then the bucket looks a little bit bigger. And we just really wanted to focus on not getting her rhythm looks early, making them work for those. And then with the post play, our post really had a battle today to try to keep the ball out of getting in the interior. In general, they're very efficient. All of their post play is very efficient when they catch you down low, but I felt like we protected each other. We tried to keep it out of the paint and out of the post, and Cola had a really, really strong game in every facet for us today.
You say
always thrive when you have so many more possessions to work with. You attempted 14 more shots. You forced up the turnovers that you committed. How much did it seem that your team was really valuing that tenet of your philosophy?
Yeah, I think when you're able to get some stops and steals, it just allows you to be a little bit more aggressive with tempo rather than walking the ball up the floor. And even with the changes of defenses, I thought the Grizz did a really good job of kind of getting us to think a little bit, and that threw us out of sorts. And so we addressed that at halftime too about, okay, you see it's zone, it's man, and even in the same setup, we're getting ready for a play, and then they changed it again. We just talked about once we know, establish your tempo at that point. But they did a great job of kind of keeping us on our toes with traps and the change of the zone and man, and really the stops and steals allow you just to be aggressive and not overthink those other things when you are walking the ball up.
Last question.
You played, I think, all 10 players by about 5 minutes in the game. 9 out of 10 played double
I
figures.
know, isn't that unusual?
How useful is that depth, though, as a coach, especially, a couple freshmen in there as well, too, just knowing you can bring them off the bench and they can handle
Yeah,
it?
I mean, if you look at our conference, how many states that we cover in our travel, I think the Big Sky is one of the toughest conferences for travel in general. And so your ability to keep kids fresh on every single possession, it really matters. And for us, we want to get all those kids' feet wet early just to see kind of who's getting going and how we can utilize them later on in that process. And so we're getting great contributions. And I didn't even get Lindsey Heinen today, who's given us some great things too. And we got Maddie Wilson that's going to be coming back later in the year. But what we try to do is making sure that we're getting them in as early as possible. We're just keeping those legs going. But we are able to do that because we feel like they're all really giving us really good minutes, and they certainly did that today.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia.